Hey game dev community, this is Brian Venzen, and today I'm going to give you a little tutorial on how I made this glitter shader. I had a game dev student approach me and ask me whether I would be willing to make a tutorial on how I did this, and I never turned down someone who's interested in learning. So I wanted to make this video today. So without further ado, let's get started. So make myself a new material here. For the tutorial, we'll just call it tutorial _mat, and we will make a material instance of this and drag that material instance onto the mesh in the window. Boom. So now the mesh in the window is going to look like the default gray box checkerboard material. So we open up our shader here. See the base shader. This material that I'm going to make for you today is just going to be opaque default lit. There's nothing special going on over here in our details panel. Just want to make sure everyone can see that there's nothing fancy happening. So the first thing with this glitter shader is you need some random noise. Now on my Patreon recently, and on my Twitter and Instagram, I believe, I posted some information about how you can generate that kind of texture in Photoshop. But if you're interested, yeah, check out my Patreon, and you'll be able to see step by step how you can do that. I think it's like 4 or 5 steps, just using some filters and some different things to get you a random noise texture. But that's what we're going to use today for this. So I'm going to bring in a texture, hold T and click, and go over here to the texture panel, and I'm going to go find Sparkle Noise 1. So just so everyone can see, Sparkle Noise 1 is just the texture that has a bunch of random noise on it, and each channel has some variations of black, white, and gray to get you some tones. Now, really, what this is, mathematically speaking, is a bunch of vectors that are sort of pointing randomly when you use that as three-dimensional noise. And that's what we want, because what we want for the glitter is sort of some random am I shining, am I not kind of math. So generally when you bring in a texture, you can also bring in a texture chord. You can do TEXCOO and you'll bring up texture chord. And if we multiply this, that essentially scales our texture to some scale that we use here in our multiplication. I just do that for the ability to potentially scale the texture later. And so we can parameterize this this value. Hold S and click. You can bring up a parameter, and we'll call this sparkle scale. So this will be the scale of those tiny random vectors, how big or small they'll be across our mesh. And if we come over here and we plug that in to our emissive channel, you'll see on our preview mesh that we'll get our kind of random noise scattered across the preview sphere. Oh, my scale is 0. Let's make this 1. Yep, there you go, right? So a bunch of random colors that will be sampling to see whether or not we want to glow or not glow in that particular area. I found that a value of somewhere around like 7 or 8 was granular enough to feel like glitter, so that's what I turned it to. So yeah, so we're already kind of on our way to that glitter feeling, right? So what we want to do with this texture is do some math to see whether or not any of these random vectors line up with our view direction, and if so, we'll sparkle it. And if they don't, then we won't sparkle it, and every gradient in between, and that's what gives us that sort of shimmering effect. So how do you figure out view direction? Well, the way you do that is you calculate, you get the world position, which world position is the position of each pixel in world space. And luckily Unreal Engine has a little nifty node here for that. So we're going to get the pixel on our mesh, and we're going to also get the camera position. I can spell camera position. And we're going to essentially get a vector from one to the other, right? So each pixel on this mesh is represented in world position, and then the camera's position to that pixel is going to give us a vector that we can check against to see whether or not we're staring at one of those pixels or not head on. And if we are, then it will flash it white. If we aren't, it'll be some variation of gray or black. So we're gonna compare these with a subtract. And one of the things I like to do for camera position, or I want to do for camera position here, is transform this vector. So we'll do a vector transform here, and we're going to transform it from camera space to world space. So, and this will just give us a flat world space position for our camera to subtract from. So we subtract our pixel's position in the world from the camera's position, or the camera's position in the world from our pixel on our mesh, and that'll give us that vector we're looking for. Now we want to normalize this. We're not wholly interested in the length of that vector. We're just interested in the direction. And so let's get organized a little bit here. We'll just call this view direction. And yeah, now it's normalized. And normalized just means the length of this vector doesn't matter to us. It's just going to be, we're gonna sort of normalize its length to be 1. And normally you want to do that when you're going to compare two vectors together. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. Is we'll grab another normalize here, and we'll make all of these vectors have a length of 1 as well, and that'll be our comparison. Now here's the problem with our current texture. By the way, we'll just call this random noise. Random noise. Now here's the problem with our current texture. It only lives in a 0 to 1 space because color is only 0 to 1. And really what we want to know is, is that pixel pointing directly at our camera? Is it some ways off our camera, or is it completely out of our camera's view? And we need more than a 0 to 1 for that. So what we're going to do is take our color here and subtract 0.5. Now what this is going to do is slide our color into a value range of 0.5 and negative 0.5. So that's going to give us facing and facing away. And then we want to now normalize that again, because we're going to compare these two vectors, both our view direction and the vectors that are given to us from this random noise. And that is what's going to give us our glow or not glow. One of the things we want to do here with view direction, essentially what we're looking at right now is from the camera to the pixel, and we want to flip that. So we'll do a 1- so we can get from the pixel to the camera. And that's what we want to compare here with a dot product. And that's how you compare two vectors, dot product. And that dot product is just saying, are these two vectors facing the same way? Are two normalized vectors facing the same direction? And that question, the answer to that question is what really gives us our glow or shimmer to white or not here in our shader. So since we finished that dot product, let's go ahead and plug that into our emissive color. And see, now we're getting that kind of white dotted effect. And if we turn our camera, we're getting some of these things that kind of glow up and shimmer, and some of them that are not facing camera anymore that kind of turn away. And so we're getting that kind of shimmer sparkle effect that we're looking for, which is great. It's a great start. So we got our view direction, we got our random noise vectors, and we're comparing those two vectors together to see whether or not we want to glow or not glow each of these dots in that texture. So the next part of the shader is going to be sort of making some math adjustments to what we currently have, because it's nice, but too many of the dots are glowing at the same time, and we want maybe a small amount or so to glow over the surface. So I'm going to try to do like a subtract here, and I'm going to give myself a parameter to change later to decide how much or how little of these dots I want to glow. And I'm going to just call this sparkle subtract. It's really literal, I know, but that's just an easy way for me to remember. Now, I think a value of like 0.8 or so is pretty good for this. So we'll plug that in and we'll see what we get from that. Yeah, right. So less places are sparkling, which is going to give us that sort of contrast look we're looking for. We're going to want to give ourselves the ability to make this as bright as we want, and so we're going to give ourselves sort of a strength value. We'll parameterize that as well, give us ourselves some flexibility here. So we'll call this sparkle multiply. Right, and we'll set that to a sort of a brighter default value, something like 8, I guess, will work. So we'll plug that in. Let's see what we get here. All right, so now we're a little bit brighter, and we'll be able to see this better in the level because there's lighting in there, and that'll help with the kind of the brightness, and there's a post-processing volume that's helping to bloom some things out, so it'll look a little better in the level. The last thing we want to do here in this sort of kind of math adjustments section of our shader is give ourselves power. Now, the power node is sort of a contrast kind of node. It essentially kind of pushes the values that are sort of middling, the 0.5s, the 0.7s, the 0.3s, towards their upper and lower limits, so 0 and 1. And so what you'll get is sort of a removal of, as this exponent value here goes up, sort of a removal of those middle values. So we'll get more brights and more darks and less sort of gray tones in the center. And that's just like a handy control for us to create the visual that we're looking for. So we're just going to call this sparkle power, and sort of the default power value is 1, and that'll essentially give us no contrast, and we'll kind of ramp that value up when we're ready. So we'll plug that in here, and we'll call this section arithmetic, or let's just call it like math adjustments. I really like to comment my shaders just so I can remember what the parts do. So yeah, quick review. We did view direction and random noise. We compare those with the dot product, and then we make some simple math adjustments to give us some flexibility on what things look like. Let's go ahead and save this, and we'll go take a look at what the shader looks like in the level. So go back to here, and we're already on our way, right? We're getting that kind of shimmering, glittery type effect already, which is great. So yeah, let's go back to our shader and keep going here. So the next part of the shader is going to deal with color. So we want to give ourselves the ability to turn our sparkles to whatever color we want, right? So we can add ourselves a multiply, hold M and click, and we can give ourselves a vector 3. If you hold 3 and click, we can right click this and convert it to a parameter and call it sparkle color. And we'll make the default color a white. So we're not changing a whole bunch yet, and we'll make changes to this later, but just so you can see, we'll turn the default color red, and you can see that it's working and doing what we're looking for here. So we'll plug our math adjustments into this sparkle color, and we'll plug that into emissive color, and what we should get is red sparkles. Voila, red sparkles, right? And yeah, some of the other stuff you've seen on that shader that kind of is floating around my social media is kind of a nice kind of outer hue on the edges of the mesh, and that's what's called a Fresnel. So let's go ahead and bring in a Fresnel. Unreal Engine has a built-in Fresnel, which is really great to use. So we'll just drop that here, and what we'll do is create two parameters to change some of the components of this Fresnel. So we'll call this Fresnel underscore base, and we'll call the other one Fresnel underscore exponent. And the default values for this are kind of harsh. So I'll throw the default values here, and then we'll make some quick adjustments. So default exponent is 5, and the default base is 0.04. And we'll plug those both in to our Fresnel. And you know I'm about to comment this space because I always do. So comment Fresnel, and we'll plug this Fresnel into our, we'll actually add it. Let's add it to our emissive color. So hold A and click, and we'll get an add, and then we'll plug our Fresnel into our emissive color, and we'll plug that addition into our emissive color and see what we get here. And there you go, right? We got that kind of rimlet look that you were seeing on my model. And that's stark white, and we obviously want to give ourselves the ability to change that color as well. And so we'll hold down 3 and click and give ourselves a color value, convert it to a parameter, and we'll call this Fresnel color, right? So we'll take our Fresnel and we'll hold M and click and do a multiply against this Fresnel, and that will give us our color. And I guess we'll stick with the theme, and we'll make our Fresnel color red as well here, and we'll multiply this together and then add that to our emissive chain here, and we'll see what we get over there, right? So now our kind of edge glow is that red color, which is great. It's a little harsh. How about we make some some small visual adjustments? Sue me, I'm an artist. I just like to have nice colors as I work through this stuff. So I'll choose, you know, some nice hues here to give us some color. And okay, so what's next is we have our Fresnel, and we have our which we can put our Fresnel in our comment over here. These two multiply against each other. Yeah, sorry. So that's our Fresnel work. And so all this stuff is emissive, by the way. We'll save and I'll show you what that looks like in the end editor, like in level with the lighting and all that. So yeah, so all this stuff is emissive, right? It's going to be this bright regardless of what's going on with the lighting. We're getting our shimmer, which is great, right? We're pretty close to what we're looking for here. We want to add some elements of kind of lit elements so that as we turn our mesh around, we get some of the light from the scene sort of bouncing off the crevices and stuff. And for that, we're going to need a normal map. And so let me bring in a normal texture that I created. We'll hold T and click. And we'll go down here to textures and for stone normal. And I just made this in Photoshop. It's just a simple cloud texture that I created. Filter render clouds. That's the way you can get one of these. And we'll put this over here. How about that? And we'll call this section normal. Not that we know what we're doing here. And then I threw it into X normal and I got myself a normal map. So we want to give ourselves the ability to sort of ramp up and down how strong this normal map is. So I'm just going to jump right in and do that now. You can right click and look for component mask. And what we're going to do is mask off our RNG, because those are sort of our the channels from a normal map, with which the light plays. And so those are the channels of our normal map we want to multiply against a value to give us sort of a normal map strength. So if we hold down S and click, we'll make our parameter here. We'll call this normal strength. And we'll make this value a default 1, and then give ourselves the ability to ramp it up later. And then because it's a normal, we have to bring back our blue channel. So we split out red and green. We're multiplying them to get a strength. And then if we right click and look for append vector, we can grab our red and green, and then we can grab our blue channel, and we can kind of reconstruct our normal here. So now this node is a normal map again. We broke it apart, we multiplied it against something, and then we put it back together. So we'll take this append and we'll drag it up to the normal pin, and we'll see what we get here. It doesn't look very different, but what we'll do is we'll go look at it in the level where we have some lighting and see what it looks like. Kind of hard to tell it's happening, and that's fine. That's why we made the parameterized version, right? Because we can go in here to normal strength, and we can be nuts and crank this up to like 5, right? And you see how this edge now has that kind of texture to it. That's what the normal map is giving us, and we can go back to the world, and we can see that texture now a little bit, right? That's what we're looking for, is just a little kind of texture along the edges where the lighting can kind of play on our stone. So that's great. So now we got our normal map, and so all of our emissive portions of this shader are just laying across a black color. The stone itself, the sort of the mesh's base color is black still. So we're going to want to change that, and maybe do some stuff with some of these sort of default Pbr values. So let's kind of jump into that. Yeah, so all we want to do here really is give ourselves the ability to change that background color from that black to something else. So we'll hold down 3 and click, and we'll convert this to a parameter, and we'll call this base color. And I'll Oh, I gotta follow my conventions. I'm neurotic about this stuff. Base underscore color. Yeah, and so just as a default color, we'll change this to something, you know, kind of purplish, since that's the hue direction we're going here. And we'll plug this into base color and save. Yeah, so right, so the background's now pink, and that color is represented here in the level. We still get our shimmers, we still got our Fresnel, and the lighting is still playing on those sort of bumps from our normal map, which is great. Now that color really kind of sucks to me, so I'm gonna choose something a little bit more representative of what we're trying to make here. Maybe something kind of darker purple, and we'll hit that. So one of the things I did as well in this sort of base color section is I created sort of a faked gradient look, like faked top-down lighting. The shader is lit as well, and so the lighting in the level is obviously going to help us with that. But I wanted to sort of increase what that felt like, so I sort of faked that by taking texture coordinates. I took the green channel, so if we do component mask, we can break off our texture chord and only use our green channel. And if you look here, the green channel is just a top-down gradient, essentially, when you split it off. And I wanted the dark portion on the bottom, so to get that, I did a 1- here, and so that'll flip our gradient. And then I wanted to give myself the ability to sort of change the height of that gradient across my geo. So I used power here. And remember, we talked a little bit about power earlier. Power is that sort of contrast, where's the darkest darks and the brightest brights, and you push those. And so if we wanted to sort of scale that in as a parameter, make that a parameter and scale that in the world, we can do that too. Hold S and click, and we'll call this parameter ambient, if I can spell, ambient shadow. And we'll just make this a default value of 1. And we will multiply that against our base color that we just created. And then we'll plug that into our base color here. Now you know we got a comment, so we can remember what this is. So T, we'll call this base color. And we'll save this, and we'll go look at that real quick. Yeah, so this is kind of what we have now, right? It's looking closer to what I was showing off on the internet. And it's so cool, right? As you turn the camera, we're getting some sparkles that turn on and some that turn off. And that's really great. That's what we want here. I know it's not nearly as bright as what I did on mine as well, but we'll save that part for last. We'll sort of go through the motions here of changing some of those values in our material instance, and that'll get us closer to what we're looking for. So one of the last things I wanted to do here was I wanted to sort of add in some of these Pbr values. So we'll just make 3 parameters, one for metallic. Actually, really, we don't really need to do metallic, so let's just do specular. And specular is kind of that glistening kind of effect, that reflective kind of effect that you're seeing on my stone. And we'll just make this a default value of like 0.3, and we'll plug that into specular, and we'll we'll use 0 for the other two PBR values. We don't want any roughness really, and we don't want any metallic really. So we'll just plug 0 into both of those, and we'll save. And we'll come here and we'll go to our material instance actually. And you can see kind of that glisteny kind of effect that's happening. Let's turn down our normal strength to like 2. And you can see kind of the reflectivity that we're getting in the middle, and that's exactly what we want here. It's just some of that kind of reflectiveness happening. And yeah, obviously we can kind of see some of those reflections on our in-level stone as well, which is great. That's what we want. So we'll save our material instance. We'll go back to our shader, and you know, I haven't saved all of this, and if this crashes, that's bad. We'll just save all real quick. And so the only other thing I did before we get to our material instance and make some kind of final changes there is I decided I wanted to add my emissive color or my sparkle color to my base color. It's not necessary, but for some reason it kind of helped my stone look the way I wanted it to. And I may actually come back and remove that now that I'm thinking about it. You know what? I'm not gonna do that this time. We're gonna save and see what happens. Because adding sparkle color to the base color is really, I don't think it's necessary here. Okay, so let's close. We don't need our texture anymore. Let's go to our material instance, and let's change some of these values to get closer to what you guys saw in the final product on my social media. So our ambient shadow, we want a little bit more shadow showing here. So we're going to change this value to a value of 2, and we're going to change our Fresnel so it's not so harsh here. Let's make our base value 0.01. And so now we're getting some of that darkness here on the bottom, as you see. And we'll change our base Fresnel value to 6. And that's kind of pushing the Fresnel closer to the edge, removing some of those middling values, right? Because this Fresnel is using a power to do that. Our normal strength, we're going to keep at 2. I think that's probably pretty good. Our sparkle multiply, let's make it a base value of maybe 7. And that didn't seem like it did very much difference there, but that's okay. We're going to do our sparkle subtract, and let's make this like 0.9. So that gives us some more, some more contrast on our sparkle texture, and so we're going to get more kind of glints, which is what we want. Let's crank up our sparkle power, and that's going to give us some more brightness here. Now this that's very bright, right? But that's not representative of what it'll look like in scene, because this is sort of just default lighting. So we'll look at it here, right? And now we're getting sort of those kind of speckly pops, and that really feels like the glitter we're looking for here, which is great. That's what we want. So yeah, one last thing is I wanted to change the sparkle scale. 7 feels maybe a bit big for these sparkles. Maybe we'll cut it down so that they're a little bit smaller, and that's easier to see here in the engine, right? Now we're a little bit more subtle about which sparkles are large and which are small, right? And as we turn this camera, we're seeing which ones kind of align and pop, which is great. And maybe we'll fudge with the colors just a little bit to see if we can get something a little bit closer to what we're looking for here, or at least what you guys saw. Actually, I remember I saved these colors because I wanted to make this fast. So yeah, so now our kind of, you see our Fresnel shader, our Fresnel rim has changed, right? So we're a little closer to what I had. And then I think I used a darker color for my sparkles. So now we'll check on that in Engine. And that's pretty close to what was out there on my social media. And I've set up this scene to to use a blueprint that'll spin this stone around, and I set up my background scene to look really pretty. And so if I hit play here, yeah, we'll get something pretty close to what you guys were seeing on social media, which is great. Awesome. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And join me on Patreon at patreon.com/letsmakeeffects, and follow me on social media at Let's Make Effects on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks.